We're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. As everybody knows, we're going to try to keep this as short and sweet as we can. And of course, we'll record it and post it if you want to watch it again. If you want any of these slides, let us know. But welcome everybody to AI and the future of the economy. I'm Bob Gavlak. I'm joined here with Nic Gookin, our CIO, who is going to be doing most of the talking tonight because he is the smartest one on it. Well, maybe not. Ryan's on here too. So, and then we also have our COO and CTO Ryan Mannen on here as well, just in case anything goes wrong on the technology side. He can help us out. But we're excited to go through this with you. I know Nic has been really excited about this. So to kind of kick it off, I'll walk through a little bit of what the agenda will look like and just get us rolling and make sure we're on the same page. So what the design of this is today is really just to talk about what is AI and kind of this technological shift that we're in, and just helping you to understand what this means and how it could impact not just the economy, but our real lives. The one thing that I want to say, what it is not going to be, is not going to be a conversation about the investment fundamentals of AI, stocks we should be investing in, or companies we should be investing in, or even saying that, right? Like I, we were talking about it before, and excuse me, for those of you that were able to be part of our cybersecurity webinar last year, we did that cybersecurity webinar as an educational piece to help you understand what you should be looking for and how it impacts you and all this, not what cybersecurity stocks to pick or if you should invest in it, right? So just want to make it very clear that's not really the goal of tonight. Our goal is more to just kind of talk about what AI is, how it's going to fit into our lives, and ultimately its impact in economy. And then from there, I'm sure we'll have plenty of discussions about the impact on the investments, over many, many years. But I think we're early to all this here. So, this is like, again, if we were doing this in '96 and talking about the World Wide Web or the internet, it wouldn't be us predicting Google or Netflix. It would be more just like, what the heck's a web page, right? Or what is email, those types of things. So, really excited about this. I know Nic is very excited about it. As always, please, please, please ask questions. That's what Ryan and I are here for, is to facilitate those questions. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Nic. Let Nic take it over and take it from here. So, Nic, the floor is yours.
All right, let's do this. I gotta say, this might be the presentation I'm most excited about. And You'll notice that the look and feel might be a little different. We actually used some pretty sweet AI tools to put this together, so it's gonna be fun. But this chart, I think, pretty much sums up why I wanted to do an AI webinar. The last 4 to 6 months in AI advancements in particular really made me pause. Aside from having a new baby in our home, I've really started to feel like just the world spinning fast beneath my feet. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's like we're actually in the middle of a lot of huge technological changes. And so, like, I feel like I'm pretty techie and in with the know, and I still feel that way. So I'm sure everyone else who isn't watching this stuff every day, they may not feel it, but if you do feel it, this will explain why you're feeling it. So, and then my AI journey, and this is, I think, it's going to be similar for a lot of people, is whether your journey started in 23 or 24 or starts today, what AI is, I think you're going to hit this peak like, holy, wow, this is crazy. And then when you go to use it for the first time or two, you'll be like, I don't know about this. That's a silly thing for it to say. And then now we've kind of at the point where it's like, wow, this is crazy, and I can see how I'm going to use this more often in my daily life. And speaking of babies, yeah, definitely afraid of how it's going to impact kids' brains. So we'll see.
Well,
To be determined on
but
that
I
one.
think about this all the time though, Nic, even with phones and calculators and stuff. Like my daughter will be like, what's 7 times 9? She'll talk it into her phone, right? And I'll be like, you should know that, right? Like, don't ask your phone. But I think what it shows is just that it can be an enhancement and it can be there to help us, right? And it's going to become more and more a part of our lives in ways we don't even realize.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So, all right. So I've read many great articles when putting this presentation together, and I have them all linked to the back of this. So you can find them there for the full dissertations. But this one really stood out to me by Ivan Zhao. And the name of the article is Steel, Steam, and Infinite Minds. And he frames the AI transition we're in that we're always driving into the future by looking in the rearview mirror. And so, what that actually means is we struggle to see the future on its own terms. We interpret the new capabilities through the limitations of the past. So, what does that mean? At risk of sounding like Yoda, let me put this into some real words here, give us some real examples. But historically, as humans, we tend to force new technology into old boxes because that's just what we understand. So if you look at the pattern, the earliest films or movies were actually stage plays that we recorded. The first cars and wagons there, horse and buggy. The first cars were actually sold as horseless carriages because we couldn't think about what a world meant without horses. And, so same carriage now with a motor, still figuring out what could be unlocked. And Netflix, when Netflix first came out and we're out there ordering DVDs on the internet, we went to the internet to order DVDs to watch movies instead of just watching movies on the internet. Like that's that's kind of a crazy point in time. I know it didn't last super long, but just an example of kind of how awkward these changes are.
I
Ryan,
was I was a heavy early Netflix user, so I was all about that.
yeah, yeah. So, anyway, I bring these up because if you look at the pattern, is that we've done the same thing with AI today. So the early chatbots look eerily similar to a Google search page because that's what folks are used to, right? So right now, I'd say we're in that classic awkward transition phase in general, where the real leap forward, like cinema's language of cuts and close-ups, the car's freedom, personal mobility, and streaming's instant, infinite library only happen when we stop forcing the new into the old and build things without the rearview mirror getting in the way. And so that's the invitation for AI right now. So, what is AI? Is it just a better Google search? Is it Skynet? Is it just hype? Is it just another acronym that's going to be part of our daily life? Like, what is this thing? I'm so glad you asked. So I asked AI to build me a diagram of what AI is, and this is one of the most concise pictures I was able to come up with. And so the inputs, and you may have heard people talk about this, but chips, not potato chips, but computer chips, and they're often referred to as like silicon chips is the main input. So when you hear about chip companies, that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Energy and power. I'm sure you've heard a lot about data centers using a ton of power and how our grid is not set up to handle it. That's a big piece. And then the other like piece of lingo that we will mention more through this presentation is tokens. And that's just a fancy way to say text, or like that's a part of the text of what you're inputting into the AI. So that's like what you would put into the search bar to prompt it to do something. So that's called a token. So all of that gets put into a prediction engine, which um, the industry calls this a large language model or LLM. So I know we have lots of acronyms, just going to keep them all straight for us. And essentially what that is doing is it's predicting, it's number crunching just a bunch of ones and zeros and running millions of different scenarios, trying to figure out what exactly it is, what kind of response it is that you're looking for. And so that prediction mechanism, when it becomes accurate enough, it looks like it's reasoning and it looks like it's a like a being. And so, but the real outputs today are text, code, images, and actions. And so I'm going to kind of take a minute to talk into each one of these things because it's pretty amazing for folks who haven't seen AI in action. This is just going to like barely scratch the surface on all of these. So, just painting the picture of what is the AI landscape today. There are, I don't know, maybe 1,000 different AI companies or more out there and growing every day. But some of the biggest players are these four, these are different AI products. So Grok, Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude. Um, those are the products. And then separate, but very similar, is the companies who makes these things. So you have XAI, SpaceX is part of, Grok is part of them. Gemini is Google's AI tool. ChatGPT's OpenAI and Anthropic owns Claude. And so, also worth noting, again, not investment advice or anything like that, but three of these four companies will likely be going public in the next 24 months. So, only Google is the publicly traded one today. But there's just so much innovation right now and so many new businesses coming to market. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll see these companies in the headlines a lot in the next 12 to 24 months because every single one of them is going to be up there with like S&P 500 valuation. So, all right. So keep it going here.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, what is an example of some output here? I asked Grok to write me a poem about Bob here. And I'm not much of a poet, so I think this is actually better than I could have done myself. So I'm pretty impressed by Grok's poem here. But I'll kind of skip that stuff here. Does a little quick web search, figures out who Bob is. He posts his life online, so it's pretty easy to figure out a little bit about Bob. But from strategic days to wealth sources call, then boldly he launched balanced wealth for us all. A firm built on values, not just charts on a screen, personalized paths where clients feel seen. I'm like, that's pretty good. We could
That
use that
brings
in
a
our
tear to my eye.
marketing.
That's pretty good, right? Like, the kind of caught the essence there. They just need to add some donuts in there or something. So,
Yep, yep. I know. So, fellas, next Valentine's Day. I know we just came over that one. Whip up some romance here with some poetry.
I like it.
All right. So, how about images? That was another one of the outputs. Sure, you've seen a lot of headlines maybe of like AI generated images, and it's super hard to tell like what's real and what's AI these days. And I am not here to help you distinguish between what's real and what's AI because that is very difficult. But one of the things I gave it to is give us a picture of a futuristic car speeding through waves with balance wealth written on the hood. And this was Grok's Imagine tool, um, which is their video and photo tool. So just amazing amount of detail, 4K resolution, and all of these with one click inside of Grok will turn into a video, like a 5, 7 second long video of it actually zipping around. So just amazing. But it's like, okay, that's cool and all. How does that translate to kind of a more tangible real life example? Well, my wife is an interior designer, in case you guys didn't know. And she has been able to use Google's Gemini photo editor tool, which is called Nano Banana. Of course, there's all these names. Leave it to the tech nerds to come up with the names too, by the way. But um, you know, she is a very proficient AutoCAD person, so she can whip up these CAD renderings for floor plans, for architecture, all that. But then it's like, how do we go from a two-dimensional CAD plan to real life? It's like, well, one sentence inside of Google's Nano Banana tool, and we can go from CAD rendering to three-dimensional colored product. And this is actually the backdrop inside her office. So she went from CAD rendering, we put it into Google, we know what we want it to look like. Now I get to go and actually build it. So we'll see if I can match AI quality here. But I have a very high bar to achieve now. So, but it's helpful. Like we know what the vision is. It's easier for me to build it when I know what the end state is supposed to look like and go from there. So,
And Nick, so going back to
yeah.
that, like the you bring this CAD rendering to life using natural wood tone, like that's the token that you referenced at the beginning of this,
Mhm.
right? So that's you just taking the same basic pieces and parts, you create the token as the individuals and tell it what to do, and here you go.
And whammy. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. I'm learning on this too. So just so everybody
Yeah.
knows, as I ask questions, that's just me making sure I understand. So please feel free to jump in with questions of your own.
Yep. Yep. So, the outputs for code. So, Grok is pretty good at code. I would say Claude is probably the best in class right now for code. It's like a horse race. Every other month, each new language model is passing the other ones. It's like now this one's the best, and then 2 weeks later, this one's now the best. So it's just super competitive and changing all the time. But one of this quick prompts here, I don't know if you can see it on the top left of the screen, but it says, give me the code for a simple website for a donut shop because I know Bob loves donuts. I'm trying to keep him engaged here too.
Love it.
And literally, that was it. One sentence, and I have a full HTML website file here, and all of these buttons, like, kind of work a little bit. So, just with zero iteration, off the cuff, give me a donut website. There we go. So, pretty amazing. So that's all. That's all fun. So, what's next, or what's now, might be a better question. And I'd say the biggest thing is this shift to agents. And this is another vocabulary word for the presentation. There won't be a quiz at the end, but you'll catch on here. So when computing first started in the 80s, it was, like the command era. So it's a black screen and, some green text, and you saw the nerdy investment or computer people typing away. It was very command based. Then we moved into the web era, much easier to use computers and the internet as a whole. And then the next step beyond that, thank you, iPhone and Google Droid, we move into the mobile era where we have apps and icons that kind of run computer interfaces now. And then really, like this started, I don't know, 23, maybe even 22, but this whole next era was it the baby steps were in 2022, but it really just started getting good at like November, December of last year. So this is a super new advancement in the technology, and I'm telling you this today in February of 26. So it's not like you missed the boat on this and this has been around for a long time. It's like, no, if you, spent time with your family over the holidays instead of reading tech articles, you might have missed it. So chatbots though, what we talked about, like chatbots, LLMs, those are the tokens that you put in. So it's like you're giving it a prompt every single time. And that's good and it creates something. But agents is when we shift into the computer actually executing tasks for you. And that's a huge fundamental shift in the way that we interface with computers. And like this is not across every device just yet, but it will be soon. So, what does that mean? I mentioned Claude. Their co-work tool is probably the most popular one right now. This is a software app that you can download on your computer, Mac or Windows, and it kind of very cleanly illustrates the difference of a chatbot versus an agent. So you toggle it from being like, okay, I'm no longer just conversing with you, chatbot. I want to go into co-work mode. And what that is it gives this program like full autonomy to edit, access your files on your computer and web access on your computer too. So just as kind of a quick example, this is from the Claude like preview. This is not me typing this, so don't worry. Uh, but it says actually one more thing. Can you check my calendar for what's urgent tomorrow? Oh, and prep a deck for tomorrow's team meeting. And Claude says, on it, I'll check your calendar, prep the deck, and while I finish up the meeting analysis. So that this is a very different of like, go and create something from the web. This is actually looking at your real calendar, your real files, your real everything, and then doing something with them. That's actually helpful. And
And
so,
and Nick,
yeah.
sorry, I'm just gonna jump in here because I was talking to my wife about this just last week, and the way she described, she's a lot smarter than me, right? And she works in this technology stuff and agentic that you're talking about right here, like agent-based AIs versus, I
Mhm.
believe the word she used to describe it was like generative AI or the chatbot, right? Which is
Mhm.
effectively just helping give you an answer, right? And the analogy she gave is like, say you wanted to plan a trip to Europe, right? You wanted to go on a cruise or something like that. The chatbot or the generative AI would say, hey, here's some really good places that you should go, that you should consider. And the agentic AI will actually go through, take your preferences, book a hotel, create an itinerary, book your flights, like do all of this for you on your behalf. Is that a fair way to kind of look at what you're talking about here too? Is just kind of it's carrying out tasks that you want it to carry out so that you don't have to worry about it so much?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great example. I think I actually have that example later in the deck, so thanks for
Okay,
stealing that.
well, I
But
stole
yeah,
some thunder. Sorry
but
about
yeah,
that.
no, 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 that's perfect though. That's exactly right, and it's the travel one is a really simple one for us to wrap our minds around. But that's a big thing on like the personal side, and that's really what Claude Cowork is like. Maybe not every business is implementing this. There's still a lot of like obvious security risks associated
Hmm.
with giving an AI tool full access to everything in your computer and your passwords and your credit card information to go book flight. Like, there's a lot of security stuff to get nailed down first. Claude being the first mover. Um, maybe they don't have the most, cautious security approach of all the other AI companies because it is that horse race, right? Like if you're too conservative, you risk being left behind, or if you're too gung ho with the security side, then that can also lead you to risks and slow you down too. So, yeah, totally interesting dynamic there. And what it means for like businesses and even people. Like you can think about this as like a business or even in your personal life, but it's exactly what you're talking about, Bob. It's like you have a task, it goes to a human has to review it. And even if we're using chatbots or LLMs to help us get through those tasks faster, we're still having to prompt the chatbot to like, hey, analyze this or give me the next action items here. What's the best way to respond to this? And it's like that still is stuck on the human in the loop is kind of the verbiage that the articles used, and I liked it, so I stole it. So, humans in the loop here, and that's largely how businesses today we're just bolting chatbots onto legacy systems that humans are in the loop, and so it's making humans more efficient, right? Because they're able to do stuff faster because the chatbots help them go faster. But ultimately, the process is largely the same, right? It's still flowing through the human. They're just getting done faster. That's completely different than what they call human on the loop, which is where the human has, I don't know, orchestration. It's kind of the best word I've seen over a handful of different AI agents. And an AI agent, you can think of it as like a computer or a robot. So think of like C3PO, right, from Star Wars.
Mhm.
Like that's a robot. An agent is a digital robot. So pretend, if you had three real robots in your everyday life right now, you might tell one to go get groceries, one to go mow the grass, one to go, I don't know, dig for gold in your backyard or something. I don't know. And so that's you orchestrating robots, same concept in computer land, and we're seeing it in computer land first because it's a lot cheaper to deploy a computer robot than a physical robot. Like, you don't have all the hardware and actuators and pistons and all that good stuff. So we're seeing this now. Like this is not something that's like far out in the future. Like this is here now. It's not necessarily being implemented everywhere, but the tech is here now. And so, real economic leverage is going to kick in when we move from, using the chatbots to like basically hiring it as and like treating it as a true robotic like employee person, etc. So, big move there. For those of you who were on Twitter yesterday and the day before, which I know is probably no one except for me, but there was an article that dropped from Citrini here, and that is why there was such an aggressive sell-off across multiple companies and sectors in the stock market yesterday. And obviously, there's a big bounce back today, but the previous day sell-off is largely due to this article that just painted a scenario. It wasn't even like a prediction, like this is definitely going to happen. It's like, let's just do a food for thought exercise on what the economy could look like with AI taking over and AI agents. And so,
And I would
you
argue
see,
too that it was a very dystopian take, right? And then,
yeah,
kind of the worst case scenarios, and then you had rebuttals that were best case. And then our view is it's going to be somewhere in the middle, right? Like, we're going to have pros and cons, and just like anything else, it's going to have its benefits and drawbacks, but keep us in the middle. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry to cut you off there.
yeah, no, exactly. And so, yeah, their prediction by early 2027 LLM, large language model, y'all are keeping up, usage was default. People were using AI agents who didn't even know what an AI agent was. The same way people never learned what cloud computing was, learned how to use streaming services. They thought of it just like autocomplete or spell check or just a thing their phone did. So that's a prediction. And, we may be little bit longer than 2027 before that's real, but these things are coming and they're coming quick. So
Well, and I think what I allude to or give an analogy of is like GPS, right? Like that is such an important part of what we have in our daily lives, right? For our navigation, our cars, on our phones, whatever. Like that is an amazing piece of technology that's extremely complex. That a network of satellites and all this stuff, but it's just like in the background for us now. We're just like, yeah, that's a thing. I don't have to pull out a paper map and go through, and maybe you do depending on where you are, right? Like you're in the middle of nowhere, maybe you need it. But I look at it like this is going to fold into our lives in a way that doesn't disrupt them, but is just something that passively we understand is there behind us to help us accomplish tasks, or business, personal tasks, whatever it is, which I think is exciting in the overall context.
yeah. And it is like frustrating, I would say, in some ways that this technology exists and like we don't see it or feel it yet. And I think it is the companies being more conservative. So like I'll point to Apple specifically. Like you can say, "Hey Siri, open my Photos app," and it like looks at like nothing happens, right? Like it cannot open apps for you via voice command very well and like actually execute tasks like a true AI agent yet. But the agentic or AI agent version of Siri is coming soon. Apple is not the first mover on these things, right? Like they like to have the more refined, polished product before they put something to market. But that is something that's coming, right? Versus saying like, "Hey Siri, go, schedule that meeting and book flights and book a room in Ohio over the last weekend in March," and it just goes and does that. Has access to your Apple Wallet already. Like there's a lot of infrastructure it already has. It just doesn't execute the voice command well yet. And so we're close. And this is going to be something that like I think it's true. Like once it happens, we're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, why didn't my phone do that?" Like it had all the pieces, it just didn't execute it for me. And so
Yep.
we're close on this. Yep. All right. Keep the ball rolling here. So we talked about AI agents are like digital robots, but real robots are the physical manifestation of AI. And so Elon Musk is probably, I would say, Tesla as a whole is the biggest player in this space. They already discontinued the Model X and the Model S at the Fremont factory in California and repurposed those lines to build Optimus robots. And that'll be a pretty small plant producing 1 million Optimus robots per year. Small in comparison to Giga Texas, which will be cranking out 10 million robots per year starting in like 26, 27. So um, that is crazy. Like that is a huge portion of the total like workforce in the US. I think it's like 60, 70 million people, give or take, are actually employed in the US full time. And so just in the next mathematically, and if it's just Tesla and nobody else, we're 7 years away from having one robot for every one real worker. And that's physical robot, not AI computer robot, right? So this is just crazy. Like this is kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like I really feel the world shifting here quick. And there are so many different robots right now. I don't know if you guys saw the Chinese one, the Unitree G1. There's videos of it with samurai swords and nunchucks, whereas like the year before it could barely like walk straight and it was all wobbly, and now it's like actually doing kung fu and karate. Like the level of advancement here is insane. So I'm not
You're
gonna
gonna
say
be able you're gonna be able to hire one to beat me up finally, Nick. So that'll be good for you.
that's right, that's right. So we'll yeah, arm wrestle. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep it going there. Impacts on the economy. So, what impacts do we think are most likely here? And there's going to be impacts in probably 50 different categories. I try to kind of summarize it down into four big ones. The main one we'll start with is CapEx. So, CapEx, I know we love our acronyms and jargon. That's capital expenditures that a business does in any given year. And so, why is that important? It's like, well, just four companies that are called some of the hyperscalers, not even all of them. Oracle is also technically included in that. Um, but they're just in January, they gave their full 2026 guidance on their CapEx numbers. And so, what does that mean as far as like how much they're investing into real infrastructure in the economy? And also just like looking at the velocity of this, like they are almost doubling the capex that we did in 2025 alone, right? Like, and that was a monster year. That almost doubled the year before. And so we're just seeing like this not slow down yet. It probably will eventually, but like right now, we're not in the slowing down part of it. We're in the still ramping up, um, lots and lots of private investment in the markets, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like versus these companies just sitting on cash and not pushing forward technology. Like the reason you're an investor in any of these is because you're hoping that they are pushing forward the bounds of what's possible. So, also just like GDP wise, it's basically impossible for us to have a recession or a contracting economy when we have so much private investment pumping into the economy. So, like, it's still possible, but like, it's highly like we got to really get a lot of things wrong to have a recession while we have this much infrastructure being built out at the same time. So, stimulus from the private sector. And then CapEx as a percent of GDP. I know this chart's a little fuzzy when I shrunk it down here, but the dotted line is where we're at now. So, as far as what are the different big like technological advancements and how much infrastructure dollars did it take to build them out as a percentage of the GDP? So, railroads, that was a big, costly build out. Like that was expensive and heavy and lots of miles of rails. Building out cars in the 1920s, that was a big deal. Communications equipment in the 90s, like that was a lot, but still pretty small compared to railroads and cars. And then now we're in the software and data centers in space and robo taxis, and all of this stuff is um, in the 2 to 3% of GDP right now. The projections, as far as what these companies are saying that they're going to likely have to keep spending, is bananas, like I said. So
Mhm.
we'll see if this, comes into fruition. Anything past the dotted line is a best guess. But regardless,
And
it's huge
And I
infrastructure.
think I look at these, these charts and these numbers, Nick, and we think about like how important were railroads to the development of the United States, right? Getting across, going from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? And how important that whole thing was in just our growth as a country and an economy. And yeah, we could look at the what did the railroad replace or what did the railroad, take people out of jobs or whatever it is. But it led us to a place where we could expand, our output as, an economy that we could get places faster and not necessarily even from a business perspective, right? Like we could visit family across the country that much faster, right? We could get to the hospitals or whatever, right? So like I look at this AI spend, and it looks huge, but it's like, okay, this could lead us to very good things versus always people taking kind of the dystopian take of like, hey, this is going to be the next Skynet, right? And we're in Terminator or whatever it might be. So,
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk about the next part of that. I'm gonna keep going because I have more stuff that kind of tie into that slide. Um, so we have this huge wave of investment, CapEx, right? At the same time, it's like, what are these data centers actually accomplishing? They're accomplishing, I'd say, really like the main thing is the chart on the left. So inference costs, which is, I know more jargon. That's the cost of them to actually train the AI models to have those really great outputs. And what we're seeing, and it's like the cost of them to process a token or a request is another way to talk about it. So, in the last 8 months, the cost for inference fell 91%. Like that's also what kind of has been blowing my mind is the cost to make these AI models is dropping so significant. And the reason is all these AI data centers coming online, right? They're pushing the bounds of what chips can do. Somebody makes a chip that's 10 times better than the previous chip, and then the next one that comes out is 20 times better than that one. And it's like, oh my God. And so better being faster and using less electricity. So we keep talking about how, there's no chance that there's going to be enough power in this country to even do any of this AI stuff. And this chart right here tells you that it's like impossible to forecast that because these companies are building these models in AI tech to use the least amount of power possible. And they are doing a really good job at it. Like they're blowing everyone's minds as
well,
far as the cost input here.
and Nick, I think that goes back to one of your first slides that we look at the future thinking about the rearview mirror, right? The limitations of the past don't help
Mhm.
us forecast the future very well, right? And especially with like limitations like this. There's a great book I read. Oh geez, I can't think of the name of it right now, but I think it's called Factfulness, right? But the idea behind it, or one of the ideas that was thrown out there is, all the scares of the 1970s, 60s, 70s of like, we're not going to be able to feed this many people, billions of people that we're projected to have because we only farm in these ways, right? And we can only produce so much food, but we didn't realize how much technological advancement we would have in our food systems, in our supply systems, in our, storage systems, whatever it is, that we not only can feed, the 8, 9 billion people, whatever it is we have now today, but continuing to get that better. So I think that ties into what you're talking about here that yes, electricity and electrification is going to be important, but we don't have to look at the limitations as it relates to what we're used to. We should understand that we're smart humans in general at fixing these kinds of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the smartest people were standing there in September of 2024 saying like, okay, at this cost to run a token, there's no way AI could get any better or people will be able to use it in mass. And it's like that cost absolutely exploded downwards, which is good. And yeah, couldn't agree more. Great analogy with the food too, Bob. So, um, you know, we'll see if this continues to shrink here. It's like a race towards zero, where the inference cost is essentially just becoming the cost of electricity. So, with both these things, this big U-shaped dynamic on the slide here, cost going down on the side, but the usage is just exploding at the same time. So, like, really, we still are putting high demands on the current grids. Like, that's not a myth or anything, but just trying to show that like what we thought was possible even a year ago, we've blown that thesis out of the water already with technological advancements. So, what are some? So this is still on impacts on the economy. So that is deflationary, by the way. The cost of this input has gone down, right? We've gotten better at making AI, so it's cheaper. Um, another way that AI can cause deflationary effects in the economy is through autonomous machines. So there's a couple really great shipping companies, like believe it or not, like trucking companies that are fully autonomous today. Tesla being one, but Aurora Trucking is another one, and just shrinking the cost from 7 cents per mile to 3 cents per mile. We're like, it's just a couple cents. What difference does it make? It's like, well, when trucks move millions of miles per day in the US, that's a huge cost. And so it's not um, it's not insignificant. And then the last mile delivery, I know Ryan and I were just talking about this the other day, but it's we're shifting from people driving cars to do like DoorDash as an easy one to example, or Uber Eats, to a robotic car driving, probably with an actual robot seated in the car to then do the last mile of delivery and actually take the food to your doorstep, get back in the car, go and reload. That is a huge dynamic on the economy and just supply chains in general. That's like, DoorDash is kind of easy one to illustrate because it's a little bit closer to home, but like those types of principles being applied across Amazon, for example, is crazy. And UPS and even US, if our post service gets some robots, that would be, probably good for everyone. But the costs are reducing. And then this has second order and third order effects on the cost of the goods in which they're delivering, right? Like if it costs way less to deliver it, then there's more room to lower the price or have more profits in the company. We'll see what they decide to do with that. So, deflation. I know that word scares a lot of people, and I wanted to kind of double click on that for a second. So, deflation, when it's demand driven, meaning that no one is buying things and that's why prices are going down, that is generally bad. That is what you call a recession and a death spiral. Deflation because there's been huge technology driven advancements where production costs collapse. That results in a standard of living boom for everyone. And so we are, I think, definitely more in the right category here of technology driven deflation, not we're having this collapse of like nobody's buying anything currently. And as we look back over history, like cars, the first cars were thousands of dollars. Not everybody had access to them. But as costs came down, they became available for the masses, and everybody got a lift in their standard of living. Like we're able to zip around. The poorest people in our country today can zip around in a car and move faster than kings could 100 years ago, right? Like that is crazy. And same is true with televisions. Like the first TVs, and I know like my dad always tells me like the first TVs were like 5 grand for like this tiny TV, and it was loud and hot and like just heavy. And now like we literally can get like 60-inch flat screens for $200 at Walmart. And so like that's a huge dynamic there. Air travel, not that that's the most enjoyable experience today, but we can still fly through the clouds like gods today. And again, nothing else in history could even afford that at all. So I think AI will have the same effect across all of the services side of the economy. So like we've seen it kind of in manufacturing, like we got really good at using robots and assembly lines to make things. But now we're seeing it across the services side of the economy, which is actually where 70% of consumer spending happens. So we just see some deflation. I'm not saying like crazy, even if this is like partially directionally correct, and we see some deflation. That means that you're having real wage growth, even if like your salary stays the same, your dollars will be able to buy more because
Yeah.
you're
And I
getting
think it,
more buying power. Yeah.
and I think Nick, to your point, like this is, different types of like it's isolated deflation, right? Like TVs as an example, right? If you look, there's these really nice spread charts that show, healthcare costs going up like this or college
Mhm.
costs going up like this, but TV costs going down like this, right? And while inflation is still there as an aggregate of the basket of goods, right? There are a lot of goods that will be deflationary. There still may be a number that are inflationary with it, right? But
Mhm.
even like our healthcare things, our educational things. And I think I'm stealing some of your thunder from this too, Nick, right? But like
Yeah.
if we can make healthcare costs lower because we can utilize AI agents to help in treating and identifying diseases or whatever, or helping schools be more efficient with how they deliver their education, right? Like these are good things that are going to put more money in our pockets to be consumers and or just spend on other things. So again, I'll let you keep going, but just trying to tie those things together to make sure that we're not scared of the word deflation in this context.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, more impacts on the economy, productivity. I think we can all just try to imagine, like, hey, if we're all using ChatGPT or chatbots to execute our stuff faster, like that's good. Even if it's still the human in the loop with AI is going to be faster than the human without AI in the loop. So we'll see some productivity gains right there. Goldman Sachs recently did some research estimates, and they're saying, on the conservative end of the spectrum, a 15% bump in labor productivity, which translates to 1 to 5 hours of work per worker per week. So huge savings there. Frees up workers to either work less and still accomplish the same, or work more and get more things done. So we'll see. There'll probably be a mix of both, right? Different areas of the economy may experience different things there. But yeah, productivity booms in coding. Obviously, we saw that the analysis of um, spreadsheets. It's crazy good at that in particular. And then creation, so generating the generative capabilities, right, for text, image, and video.
And Nick, I'm gonna butt in again here,
Mhm.
but like we go back to, the weekend was designed by, I believe Henry Ford was one of the ones that kind of implemented or was a spearheading a weekend for everybody, right? So instead of working 7 days a week, because we had the assembly lines and because, he wanted to get people out to actually go buy his cars and enjoy the cars, right? So similar thing can happen here, right? That standard of life can go up for so many people in not just the United States, but in the world by
Mhm.
utilizing these different technologies and leveraging them in our everyday lives and in businesses.
Yep. Yep. So couldn't agree more, Bob, and keep going into this Goldman Sachs research report. They talked about unemployment impacts. This is their estimate. Unemployment ranges, just for everyone's reference right now, is currently at like 4.3 or 4.4%. And their projections from Goldman Sachs are saying that could increase by a total of like roughly 2 or 2.5%. So it could go from 4.4 to 6 or to 7%, and that would be like in the realm of possibilities. And they have it broken down into like which categories or sectors of um, the economy they think will see the most unemployment happen first. So,
Hey, Nick, just real
yeah.
quick, we got a question come in. So, and I think this
Mhm.
is a good kind of general question just to keep everything consolidated and bring it all together. But would you compare what AI is doing and where it is going to what the internet did for the world? Or I guess, how would you compare what AI is
Mhm.
doing and where it's going to what the internet did for the world?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of similarities for sure. I think the adoption rate is with AI is way faster, like magnitudes faster, because when the internet came out, not everybody had a personal computer sitting in their living room. Not everybody had a cell phone in their pocket either. And
Yeah.
so now, like when you do a Google search and it pops up that AI summary, like that is AI. That is a token that was created by the LLM that is now AI. Like it's happening in the background. So there's a huge adoption of AI by people that don't even know they're using it, first of all. And like it's very similar. I would say has the opportunity to be even more transformative in some ways because like the internet was it's just a computer thing, right? Like it's in the cloud, it's a digital experience. AI is the first time like we're really taking the internet stuff and turning it into physical things, the physical manifestation, right? Of humanoid robots in particular, self-driving cars in particular. Like that is real world AI that um, is kind of a function of the internet, but the internet never gave us that. So
Cool.
Okay. So predictions that technology will reduce the need for human labor have a long history, but a poor track record. That was also in the Goldman Sachs piece. So, saying like, there's a good chance there's going to be some unemployment here, upticks from this. And this is just a separate report that I kind of think ties into it. Super interesting. So, for the younger crowd, of the unemployment rate, which is at 4% of the workforce right now, roughly 1 in 4 of those people are holders of a 4-year college degree. So this is not, I'd say, normal. This trend has been ticking up higher. And I think AI is going to make it even tougher for people to, especially college grads with no other experience or just people, weighing if they want to go to college today. I would encourage you to take a good hard look at that, because college is basically you're making a bet into future job opportunities, and it may benefit you whether the job opportunity exists today or not, right? So there's always that chance, but just the premise that getting a college degree is a shoe-in to a job is certainly not the case anymore, not what it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago even. So interesting there. But there's currently almost 2 million people aged 25 or older with a college degree that are unemployed. So I would say that is a problem. And we will give these people some pointers in the following slides. So, all right, keeping it going here. So just as a quick summary, we hit on CapEx. It's exploding higher. It's going to be hard to have a shrinking economy because there's so much CapEx going on. Deflation, it will have deflationary effects, I think, just across the consumer services sector as a whole, which is 70% of the economy. Productivity, I think there's no question that people will be more productive with AI tools. Even if they're still in the loop, they'll be more productive. Unemployment, question mark there. Seems like it could soften, but there's also plenty of scenarios where it goes the other way and we have more people employed because of AI. So we'll get into that too. All right, so impacts in real life. This might be my favorite part of the presentation, so I'll try to keep it under an hour here, for this section. So uh, impacts in real life. This is, I think, one of the first easiest examples. So up here in Michigan, this is a grocery store chain, specifically in like rural areas in Michigan, which is where I live, and good old Family Fair. I walk into Family Fair into a town that has 7,000 people, and they have these robots zipping up and down the aisles doing inventory. And also, I think cleaning the floor. It's kind of like a Roomba with a giant, camera system on top of it. But Simbi Robotics, the name of the robot is Tally, and it talks to you if you have questions, etc. But it's going and it's scanning inventory levels for all the goods in the store, getting more real-time data. This is a small store that is already implementing this stuff. And that was crazy. I think that's probably one of the first like robots in the wild that I've seen. So had to take a picture. All right. So keeping on that one. Another robot in the wild that I've seen that I think actually all of you have seen is a Tesla. So right now there are 4.5 million Teslas on the road today with hardware for technology. So like that's a newer version of the hardware. There's a lot more Teslas with older software, hardware, whatever. But the ones with hardware for are the ones that are fully capable of doing the hands-off self-driving. At the same time, so there's 4.5 million already on the roads. The cyber cab was recently introduced this year. Elon's already promised, verified that delivery will happen by 26. We'll see how good he is at that timeline. And that the cost to buy the cyber cab goes to $30,000 or less. So really, the reason that this is so important or so transformative, and I want to pause on it, is that today cars sit parked in your driveway 95% of the time. AI can unlock some of that 95% by removing the driver. We don't just lower the cost of the ride, but we fundamentally change the ownership model. So it's letting you, shift that asset utilization. Instead of using it from 5% of the time, maybe you start to use it, it gets used 50% of the time. And when you opt your car into the robo taxi network, you actually get revenue from that. So instead of your car always costing you money, now you have a way for it to just autonomously opt in and make you money while you're, out of town or whatever. So just
Yeah.
crazy times we're
And
living in. This is a real thing. So
And I have not yet driven in like the Waymo cars in, California or Arizona or Texas, right? But I've had lots of friends that they've gotten picked up by a car without a driver and driven from an airport to a hotel or whatever it may be. And they've said it's been great, right? So like this is happening already in the United States today.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, self-driving cars, why not self-driving drones? So, Palmer Luckey, who's the founder and CEO of Anduril Industries, which is a defense company in the US, privately owned as well, um, recently announced that that Anduril will launch the AI Grand Prix held in Ohio in November 2026. So,
All right.
all the Ohio people tuned into the call, you might want to go add that to your calendar. But what's amazing about this is all the teams, there's already been like 1,000 teams that have registered for it. They all get the exact same drone, and there's no human pilot. You cannot modify the drone. The way it's a competition is you have to write the best self-flying software. So for it to know how to avoid obstacles, how to speed up, how to turn the motors differently, etc. So this is even just like NASCAR with drones would be kind of cool, but it's taking a step further where it's like these are self-flying drones. There's no pilot once they take off. So that is crazy. Entertainment can be changing. There's definitely a good chance we see some like UFC with robots coming soon too. See,
They already
that's
have battle bots.
yeah, yeah, battle bots, but like human robots. Maybe. There's movies about that. Real steel.
Yes.
All right. So another way it's in real life, pausing from the robot side, is AI in healthcare. I think is probably going to be one of the biggest movers for lots of reasons. So break this down into two areas. So first of all, the multinomics, genomics thing. I think like 10 years ago, it cost $100,000 to run a DNA sequence to get the full genome of a human. And today it costs $100. And that is a huge decline. I know healthcare costs in general have gone up. So this is one area of healthcare that's gone down. And the reason that that's important is because now AI can crunch the numbers of somebody's DNA, their specific genome, and it can help develop drugs. And probably what we'll likely see is a few different flavors of drugs depending on people's different genomes. So, when you see those ads today and it's like, take this acne medicine and it may cause heart attacks and death and blindness. And it's because we all have different genomes and we don't know how this drug is going to interact with those genes. And so now all of a sudden, if we shift from like, okay, we have a deep understanding of your genome, so therefore you need this very specific drug that's not going to have all of these terrible side effects. That is a profound change in healthcare across everything. And that's separate from just diagnosing early diseases early. That's a huge part of it too. So moving from AI developed drugs to precise cures, I think is going to be probably the coolest shift we see in healthcare, where people are going to look back and be like, you guys used to just take drugs and didn't know how it was going to affect your genome, like, or how your genome was going to react. Like, what were you doing? I'm like, I don't know. So, that's a huge, huge move there. The other one is hearing aids. I know we have a lot of, folks that may or may not be starting to look at hearing aids on this call. And the
I hope you're
Foretel,
not talking about me, Nick. I'm only
yeah.
40.
I know he's 40 this year, so we've already hit him with the hearing aid jokes and the cane and all that. But yeah, so Patrick O'Shaughnessy, he's a great podcaster. He does really deep, great interviews with just disruptive tech CEOs and companies. But he talks about these hearing aids, and the reason they're so profound is it does real-time splicing of background noise versus human voices. And so it can dynamically amplify the stuff that you want to hear and tune out a lot of the rest. So even if other hearing aids haven't worked for you, these ones I hear are pretty game changing. So All right. Keeping it going here. When I said I was like worried for our kids, this makes me a little less worried for our kids. There's a AI powered school called Alpha School that is sort of sweeping the nation. The cost per year is $50,000. So not for the average folk. And this is for elementary, middle, and high schoolers, $50,000 a year currently. But their plan is to democratize this and push this out to the masses and open it up. But the initial model is very expensive. They currently have 22 campuses across the US. So this is not just some like little side project in one city. Essentially, what they're able to do is use the AI tutor to compress all the learning, like the real school stuff, into 2 hours. And then they use human teachers to fill in the remaining 4 hours to work with the kids to work on things that they actually enjoy, like life skills, sports, and creativity. So it completely shifts the normal school experience on its head. And the results of this, like every standardized test score and beyond, is they're not in the top 1%. They're in the top tenth of a percent globally.
Mhm.
They have like the average student has a perfect SAT score. Like that's average. And
Mm.
the reason for that is it has the AI tutor that slows content down. Like if you have a sixth grader who's in eighth or yeah, an eighth grader who's at a sixth grade level of math, the AI tutor takes it steps back and goes and builds them up in the areas that they're weak, where a normal teacher just doesn't have the time and ability to do that for a classroom of 20 students or 100 students in many cases. So this is an amazing development here, Alpha School. Keep your eye on that one. And more of like got to end the AI stuff on a positive note. So I know I had this slide up in our last presentation, had to add it back in. But what's being built now with AI is largely just the infrastructure layer. Um, and the application or the empire has yet to be built. So people who invented refrigeration made some of the money, but Coca-Cola made most of the money. And the empires that are built next have yet to be built. And there's going to be a lot of empire building, I can assure you that, in this next chapter of the economy. So there's plenty of opportunities. It's not all doom and gloom. And then just the other big thing is once you realize the gap between what you can imagine and create has collapsed, your relationship with your own creativity completely changes. So I think AI gives everyone permission to go and just try something that you have imagined, like an idea, whether it's a project, a book, something artsy, or a business. You can now model out the business, you can run scenarios, you can build the entire business stack very cheaply and integrate all the pieces very cheaply. And so just the barriers are to creation in general are collapsing. And
Well,
so,
and Nick, we had a question while you were talking, and I just answered it via text. But
mhm,
somebody asked, like, "Hey, we need to create a logo for a 200th anniversary for our community. Like, what should we
mhm,
use?" And I think this slide ties to that, right? Like, you don't
mhm.
need to necessarily limit yourself that, "Hey, I'm not good at creating logos. I can go put a token in to an image generator." And you said Nano Banana on Gemini, so I assume images are best on Nano Banana, but I don't know, right? But like that's something there that we can take, and it's going to enable people to unlock so much of what maybe they weren't sure that they had, and allow us to do more as individuals and ultimately as a community and a humanity as a whole.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So currently, Nano Banana is best for like editing images, and like Grok Imagine is probably the best for just like creating something from scratch.
There you
So,
go. Grok
uh,
Imagine is the one you want
yeah.
to go to for creating a logo for the party. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. So there, but I'd say try them all out. Like the cost for these things is nothing. Like it's literally, I think most of those AI tools have a free version. The paid versions are like maybe $20 a month, like for the intro tier. So like it's not expensive to try them out.
Yep.
And so I think we're about to witness a new renaissance in creativity and entrepreneurship as a whole across the country. So I'm excited for it. And I think we'll see an absolute explosion. There's so many great ideas out there that just never could take their idea and make it into something tangible. And now these entrepreneurs have the tools to do that or take an entrepreneurial step. If even if they don't consider themselves an entrepreneur, like they can take an entrepreneurial step now because the barriers are so much lower, the lowest they've ever been. So, all right. Final closing thoughts here, and then we can open it up for some Q&A if we still have people on the call. I don't know if we do. But just in general, I don't believe in reading off slides, but I'm going to read this one off to you because it's great. So every major technological leap demands we stop driving while staring in the rearview mirror and start imagining the road ahead. Today, we're tempted to fixate on the displacement, the job shifts, the uncertainty, and that's visible first and feels scary. And we've already seen clients get unemployed because of AI shifts. Like we see this in real life. But the real story lies ahead, and it's what's harder to see is the explosion of opportunities that AI is unlocking. We're still early. Most of what we call AI right now is just chatbots bolted onto human designed workflows. Yet there's never been a better time to be a doer. The tools to create, build, capture value are more powerful and more accessible than at any point in human history. The next skyline is already taking shape. Let's stop looking back and start building it. Rah, rah. So that's our
Love it.
mantra for this
Love
one.
it. And Nick, you said that some of these articles that you referenced are in the kind of the closing part of this.
Yeah.
So disclosures, of
Yeah.
course, but then all kinds of
Mhm.
really interesting articles here that if anybody is interested in just reading more, learning a bit more, you could even drop these into AI and ask them to give you a summary on all these articles, right? So if you want the Cliffs Notes, right, like use AI to help you read quicker, right?
Mhm.
But I think that Nick, thank you so much for putting all this together because I think it was really entertaining, very helpful, very insightful. I think it gives a foundation for what AI is and how it can impact us. And so thank you for that. And for everybody that attended, thank you for being on here. Thank you for sticking with us and, asking some questions here and there. Of course, Nick is here, Ryan, me, we're here for questions tonight. But even as you kind of digest this and go forward, or anybody that's listening to it after the fact, always reach out to us. We're happy to be here to answer questions and give some insights. But Nick, thank you for everything. You're the man. Very excited about what the future holds with AI. Ryan, thank you for being our man in the background, making sure all this technology actually works. And thank you all for being on here tonight and being a part of this.
Cool. Oh, got some chats here.
Great presentation. You're just getting, a round of applause effectively, Nick, is what you're getting.
All right.
So, well
Cool.
done.
Sweet.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.